Welcome to another episode of the Executive Exclusive. I am your County Executive, Julie Giordano, and with me, as always, is my sidekick here, Bunky Luffman, the best Director of Administration across the state of Maryland, maybe even in the country. So, Bunky, thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, it's great to be here today, and I'm proving I don't have to be in a suit every day.
That's true. Good. That's true. You do rock the county emblem very well. So, we have a lot to get to today, and we are back to our regularly scheduled program. I know there was a little bit of a hiatus with me doing some traveling, for work. But the first thing that we wanted to talk about, of course, is the update on the lawsuit. So Thursday was a good day. We got the judge's order back that the judge ruled in our favor. There was a little snafu as to what happened with the judge's ruling. But if you want to talk a little bit about the language situation, and then we'll kind of talk about what we think, what that means. So if you want to go ahead.
Yeah, so there has been a charter change. There have been multiple charter changes over the years. And so the judge did an analysis and ruled in favor of us. However, when he inserted a citation from a charter, it was from a previous charter. So we believe it's a clerical error, and the attorney filed that as such that's representing us. The county council attorney, on the other hand, believes that the miscitation or clerical error could be something bigger and could potentially change the outcome of the lawsuit.
Right. So just a little bit of a language change. And so what was interesting, though, is that throughout the document itself, throughout the ruling, the current charter language was quoted later on. So the old charter language doesn't even have it where the assistant director of administration would have to go in front of council. Mm-hmm. So it's obvious that he knew the new language, and I think it was honestly just an erroring and copying and pasting situation. But we are very strong in belief that the judge knew exactly what he was talking about. He obviously got the point that we were trying to make, where there has been no consistency when it comes to appointments. There is nothing in the charter that states exactly, what constitutes a submission, what, any sort of outline as to how this goes. That, we've had to put it in closed and then wait 2 weeks and then they do a confirmation. So just at the end of the day, it's very simple. We submitted Matt, and the judge recognized that the April 4th, was a submission. The council recognized that it was a submission, and they didn't vote on it 45 days later. So the appointment stands. And I think that that's the most important thing. A lot of people also, when they hear this at legislative session, and I know that there was a news broadcast that came out that talked a little bit about this. I think people are under the impression that you and I or whoever can just storm in somewhere and say, hey, we're going to put this on the agenda. So do you want to explain to citizens how the agenda works and how something gets into the legislative session or the open session or a closed session?
So we make a request, usually through memo, that goes from our office to the county executive's office, county council's office to the county administrator. And then my understanding of the process is she then meets with the county council president, and he ultimately gets to decide what goes where, or if anything even meets the agenda. The executive's office does not have the right to set anything into a county council agenda, and that's appropriate. There is a division between governments, between the executive side and the council side, and we respect that. So we cannot compel them to put anything in any kind of session. All we can do is make a request. And then in our time, which is a little less than a year, there have been times where we've requested things in closed session, they went to open. We requested things in open session, it went to closed. There was a constituent issue that you requested early on be heard on the council agenda, and that was denied completely, which again, all those things prove that the county executive in our office cannot force or compel the county council or county council president put anything on the agenda. And so the argument that we have is we are limited. All we can do is make a request. So if the charter truly reads that the county executive has to put something in legislative session, then that would create a whole new sort of government where we as the county executive's office could compel the county council to do something in their agenda, and that's never existed.
Right, or that we could control the agenda.
Yeah.
And here's a perfect example. And I think council president went on record stating that, we would do anything that they request. I'll give you a perfect example. This has nothing to do with appointments. We had some budget transfer requests that were coming in, and we just gave a resolution to do these budget transfer requests. One was for Rec and Parks, another for Corrections, and I think there was one more. But at the end of the day, what they're saying, the way that the process is that if they get a resolution, automatically it goes in legislative session. Well, they didn't put it in legislative session, right? So they put it right in an open work session because the council felt that they needed to hear from the department heads exactly what this budget transfer request was for. So yet again, we just don't control the agenda. And I will say it till I'm blue in the face, not one appointment that I have done, not you, not Donna, not Pam, not anybody that I have put forward has ever been asked to be put in legislative session. Not one. Not one. I will show anybody every memo that has gone across. Never have we asked for legislative session, ever. So to sit there and say that it needs to be put in legislative session or requested in legislative session or whatever they're saying is a moot point because their appointments have been done several different ways. And that's what the judge was saying. It's the inconsistency that's the problem. You can have whatever language you want, but it's the inconsistency of the process.
Well, Mr. Wilbur, in his opinion that we got early on, that he gave to both the county executive's office and the county council, at the end of his opinion, when he said the appointment stands confirmed because they didn't do anything 45 days, he also said a recommendation that the council and the executive's office get together and develop a process that we both agree with. So it looks to me like what we're doing does work. It's worked. I mean, they've been on record in council. We've approved X number of things through a process. So we should just use a process that works and move on with our lives.
Right. And I think that very last appointment that we did, which we've never had it done this way, usually the submission and then the confirmation takes like 4 weeks. It's a 4-week span, which is ridiculous that it should take 4 weeks. But we have to put the request in, we do the submission, they meet the candidate, 2 weeks later, then they vote on it. This last one, though, Adam Gardner, which is our deputy director of aviation, we gave a complete package and he was put right in legislative session. I think I prefer it that way, and that was just like one of 5 different ways that they've done the appointment. So I prefer that way, so hopefully they'll be okay with that process. So.
Well, and one thing I want to say to credit Matt Leitzel, who now, per the judge's order, is in place and in good stead. The judge also rightfully made the county pay him for back pay because there was a time we had to put him on administrative leave while their defunding bill was taking place. But to his credit, he stuck around through months of dealing with this. Will I have a job? Will I not have a job? I mean, he's a father and a husband. He has a child in high school in Pennsylvania where he's from. I mean, this was not an easy time, and he stuck through because he's a great public servant, retired police officer, and I really admire that about him, that he stuck through all of this lawsuit and everything that this must have put him and his family through to work for Wicomico County. And I think we have a great person that's on staff and is going to do great things for us.
Yeah, and just to kind of wrap up, I totally would mirror what you say about Matt. One of the biggest things, and I think that was so eye-opening for us as well, and it made me realize just how great of a choice he was, when we were at that legislative breakfast, when we held that, every entity that was there, whether it was education, our business community, higher ed, sheriff's office, state's attorney, all these different stakeholders are there. Every single person, their top priority was crime and public safety. So it's almost, for me, I owe it to the citizens of Wicomico County. I have to have somebody in my administration with that law enforcement or public safety background. Mm-hmm. The city, not to sit here, I know people are like, don't do what the city does or do what the city does. They're great, or, whatever. It doesn't matter what people think. They literally just hired John Toll. And, he was, the fire chief. That public safety knowledge is so imperative in administration, especially with what's going on now. Our crime is escalating. I owe it to the people of Wicomico County to have somebody in our administration with that background. And so I'm just going to leave it at that. But we are hoping that this is just, the clerical error will be fixed. The judges, we 100% agree with the judge. I think that he did a great job. I don't feel like it was rushed. I think that he analyzed the evidence, and I think that he just did an amazing job. And I really hope that, it stays. So, yeah. All right, so we're going to give you a quick rundown of the county council meeting yesterday. There is one part I'm going to skip, and that was basically what we just talked about. Mr. Benson, if you want to watch his testimony, it was an open session. He does talk about what he thinks happened. I think he was a little rough on the judge. I think that the way that he handled it, probably I would have done it differently. I think Mr. Wilbur would have done it differently. But, it is what it is, and he's a firm believer in what he really believes in what he's saying, I guess. But council recap, just to go over it, was great talking about those resolutions. We're able to continue doing the fencing for the softball fields at Billie Jean Jackson Park. We're also able to continue work at Cedar Hill, fixing the boat slip and the bulkhead replacement at Cedar Hill, which is so needed. So my West Side people, we're still working to get things done over there. We were able to get the veteran-friendly situation taken care of at our for the county. So if you are a veteran, you can apply your military time to your years of service here. We, at this point in time, for full pension, it's at 25 years. If you work 20, you can apply up to 5 years of military credit, which is really great. We think that veterans bring, I think you said this, a unique set of skills to the table, so we are excited.
Well, and my dad did that when he retired from the city of Salisbury. He was able to use his time during Vietnam for that. So.
Oh, yeah, that's great. We had a lot of appointments and reappointments for the Behavioral Health Council, so that was good to get them back to a full group. And you had one for the Commission of Women, which is our new medical director. So that's exciting. She'll be a good entity for that. So hats off for that. We spent a lot of time on cannabis. There was about an hour and a half, I feel like, on cannabis. So just for the people of Wicomico County, do you have a pretty good understanding as to what the amendments were? Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, one of the things that's really important to know about this is that the county, yes, we have planning and zoning authority, of course, but also the municipalities do. I was a chairman of the Planning and Zoning Commission in Delmar, which does Delmar, Maryland, and Delmar, Delaware. And so whatever the county does, and it looks like industrial plus some commercial, we could do that, but that's not us. The county doesn't have planning and zoning authority, say, on Main Street of Salisbury, because that's incorporated in Salisbury. Salisbury's own planning and zoning will have to do that. Their staff will have to prep that, and they'll have to go do that request themselves. Mm-hmm. So county commercial is a little different than municipality commercial. So, but yes, this is the second or third meeting where there's been a long discussion about it. Mm-hmm. And discussion centers around where it's appropriate. I think they've settled where it's appropriate to do processing and that kind of thing, but it's the storefront dispensaries.
Right.
Where is that appropriate? So that was the big discussion, and what, to the extent you allowed it in commercial, where do you allow it? And then do you have setbacks over things like, churches and schools, and what would be the appropriate setback? Because the bill itself from Annapolis says you cannot do an undue burden toward someone attempting to start one of those businesses. So if you did a regulation where it had to be 500 feet, is that an undue burden? Or what if we took it out to 2,000 feet? Because that's sort of, they looked at 500, 1,000, 1,500, and 2,000 feet. So it looks like they settled on 1,000 feet. But that's sort of where the discussion is.
Yeah. And so right now it looks as if we are good for the I-1 and I-2 zones, and then C1, C2, C3 for different things. So it was like one for the processing, one for the storefront. And just so everyone's aware, the county doesn't have a ton of commercial area, a ton of commercial area. It's very small slivers throughout the county. Now, there's a ton of commercial area in the city of Salisbury, Delmar, Fruitland. So they actually will be able to determine what that's going to look like. So, kind of interesting. It was definitely a long process, but they did pass it. And so we think that we have a good take on that. So moving on, we have a new mayor.
Yeah, that's right.
We have a new mayor. So congrats to Randy Taylor. Congrats to all the city of Salisbury council members. And we got a new one, Sharon DeShields. So that's great. What are your thoughts about Randy winning?
Well, he seems really nice. I mean, I met all three of the candidates, and they all three would have brought different aspects, but the good thing is, sort of from the executive's office is I was like, I think we can agree on this thing or this thing. So you always look for the connections. So with Randy, I think business person, really understands real estate and the business community. Bill Chambers from the Chamber of Commerce gave a quote to one of the television stations. I'm sorry, I can't remember which one it was, where he said that he thought he would be really good for business. So I think, and what Bill said was to continue sort of the growth, or progress of Salisbury. So I think that's sort of what Randy will bring to the table, and I think that's a good thing for our county and the city. We have a lot of people who are. We have some that are out of work, but we have some that are sort of underemployed. Maybe they could be hired at a higher level, or maybe we could get them some training through Warwick. So I think there are opportunities definitely to grow our economy, and I think having another mayor that's sort of focused on that would be good for our whole region.
Yeah, and Randy, I think his tagline was progress with transparency. So I think there were a lot of people that grasped onto that, and I know that it was split three ways, and I have to say, I mean, each candidate earned, a good amount of votes. I mean, it was a very close race. So again, congrats to Randy, and I think that we look forward to working with him. We'll let him get settled, and I remember those first couple weeks in office, we were just kind of running, felt like in 90 miles an hour to try to keep up. So he's got a lot of stuff to absorb. So we'll give him a little bit of time and then hopefully set up. I'd love to do like a monthly meeting with him to kind of see where the city is and what we can do to work together. So
one of the things, and not my place at all to say it, but I'll say it anyway. One of the things I'd put a plug in that I think the city of Salisbury should do is separate the person winning officially by more than 3 days. So he officially won on a Friday, was sworn in on a Monday. So I'm sure he had his transition team and people he was meeting with, but at the same time, the results were not official. He was only up by, I think it was 65 votes before that final day. So it'd probably be nice to make that a couple weeks, so that outgoing administration, ingoing administration sort of meet, have warm handoffs. And I've known Mayor Heath for a long time, so I'm sure he'll help him in any way possible. That'd probably be a good thing to have sort of a couple weeks.
Yeah, maybe if they did it at the same time, because I think I was sworn in and started work that day at noon at December 6th. So ours is a little bit different. You do the swearing in and then you start. If they wanted to do their swearing in, but then give him a little bit of time, or, he does his swearing in and then, but maybe in December, to give him a little bit more time, yeah. So just moving on to two exciting things that we wanted to talk about. We had a groundbreaking at the airport. You were cheering on the Ravens that day.
That's right.
So Ravens played awesome on that Thursday night. So we had a groundbreaking for our snow removal equipment and our firefighter equipment because the building, oh my gosh, we've driven by that maintenance building. It's kind of hidden off to the side from the public access, which is good, but the building was just in such disrepair. So it is really good that we were able to get funding for this, and it's going to be a really great facility. And it seems like it'll be about a year, and then we will have a ribbon cutting, so that's exciting. Yeah. So have you talked to Tony about just the importance of this building and why it's so important?
Well, yeah, it's part of a package of things that we're upgrading at the airport, and it's so important. I feel like we're building or standing on the shoulders of John Hall, a former councilman who was always a great advocate for the airport, Wayne Strasburg, Matt Kramer, who are still on the airport commission, and it's so important to not only upgrade the facility to a today's standard, but also in a forward-looking way, because we continue to sort of try to market around. We have a great daily carrier now, but there's a potential that we could, enlarge the airport, bring more companies in, and these are the sorts of facilities that those entities look for. If we were able to bring another airline carrier in, this is sort of what they look for. They want to make sure that we have firefighting snow removal capabilities. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So just a big shout out to Tony Rudy and everybody at the airport. It was a great groundbreaking event. Also, big shout out to the Airport Commission. Those guys are so knowledgeable. Their institutional knowledge of that airport and just the support that they give it is just awesome. So they're so easy to work with because we have a lot of the same, or the same futuristic plans for the airport that they do. So we kind of give the same support. So. All right. Well, we are going to get ready to wrap up. I just want to say thank you to everyone, and I hope you all have a good Thanksgiving. I know some of you might be watching this after Thanksgiving, but that's okay. I hope you had a great Thanksgiving. We want to give a big shout out to our corrections, our dispatch, our fire, EMS, law enforcement, military, our nurses and doctors, anybody else working on Thanksgiving. We thank you so much for your service to our county, really, and across the state of Maryland and the country. And I'm going to go ahead and end with our quote of the day. Be thankful for the struggles you go through. They make you stronger, wiser, and humble. Don't let them break you. Let them make you. Thank you so much, and we hope you all have a great Thanksgiving.